Welcome, everybody. This is Adam from Miller's Custom Guitars and the N+1 podcast. And this podcast is all about hobbies, passions, obsessions. You know, the name of the show is the N+1 podcast. And what I found as a musician is that, you know, there's always room for one more guitar in the guitar stand. How many guitars is enough guitars? N+1. You always need one more. And I found that to be true with basically any pursuit, any hobby, any passion. It's not just what you're working on. There's always one more thing that we're interested in pursuing. And so I bring on a guest from all different passions and pursuits and hobbies and all that stuff. And I talk to them not just about what they are interested in, but I also talk to them about what's on the horizon and what's next. And I'm so excited today to bring on a very dear friend of mine. And this is my good friend, Christy Maxson. Christy, hello. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Yeah. And Christy and Derek were about the first friends that we had when we moved to Sonora. We moved to Sonora. So Elena is 14, and we found out we were pregnant the month after we moved here. So we've been here about 15 years. And we started visiting Sierra Bible Church, and within a couple months, you guys snatched us up, and you're like, "There's new people, they're ours." They are our friends now. So
I remember holding Elena when she was very little.
Yeah. And we've had small groups at your house. We've played Catan. We've watched your kids grow up. You've watched our kids grow up, and you guys have been very dear friends to us for a long time. But we didn't come here to reminisce about the old days and my daughter puking on your carpet and us feeling so embarrassed about that.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, we were having a small group, and you know, little Lena was crawling and just puked right on your little rug there. Oh. Anyway, but we didn't come here to talk about that. We came here because some time ago you began a career as a therapist, as a counselor, and you know. So far on this podcast, I've been talking to basically people in the arts, right? I've been talking to artists and, you know, actors and, you know, comedians and photographers, you know, and musicians. But I've also wanted to talk to people who are very passionate about their careers. And so I just had my brother-in-law, Tim, who is a CrossFit coach, and I wanted to get someone on to talk about counseling and therapy, and you came to mind. We actually ran into you at the while I was out on a father-daughter date with my daughter, and it was Providence, because I'd been in my mind wanting to talk to you. This actually all came kind of to a head when I had Jason Rivera on. And one of the things he said really struck a chord with me, which is that he mentioned that in our modern culture, anxiety and depression, especially in young people, is so prevalent. And it really made me think about that issue. And I was like, I really should get someone on to talk about therapy and counseling. And of course, you know, you sprang immediately to mind. So I wanted to talk to you and talk about your journey, how you got into it, and maybe, you know, I'm going to follow the format of the questions, but I wanted to let everyone know that because it is it's restricted by HIPAA regulations, Christy has she has the confidentiality of her clients in mind. When she can, she will talk in generalities. She'll tell stories when she can, but at times she's also going to maybe potentially decline when she has to. Do you want to say anything in that regard, or?
Yeah, no, just that I won't talk specifically about any clients.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's basically it.
Yeah. And I have also given her permission if she says, hey, I can't answer that, or I won't answer that, that's going to be fine, and we're going to respect that. Well, so anyway, so thank you for coming on. What I wanted to know is, how would you describe this to someone like this therapy, like maybe to a 5-year-old, what is it? What even is it? I don't even know, because I don't even know. And you helped counsel me one time. What even is it? What is this whole thing?
Yeah, so when people are going through tough times in their life, or they've had something really bad that happened, like, early in their life, or even recently, something that's just really affecting them and making them, be really anxious or really sad, or they're having problems with their relationship, any relationship, like could be husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, siblings, parents, anything like that. They come in and talk to me. And so they sit down and we talk, and we do some different things that help them to process things that have happened in the past, and kind of work through them. And I just kind of give them time and space and a safe environment to explore all that.
Okay. And how did you get into this whole thing? Because when we met, you weren't doing that, and now you are. What led to this whole thing? The way I always like to frame it is, what was your gateway drug? But I feel like that in the context of therapy is maybe not the right way to phrase that. But how did you start to think that you might want to do that, and how did you get into it? I know you went to school for a long time, kind of around the other things you were doing. Can you tell me your story about that? Yeah.
So my husband Derek has been in the past, in another life, has been a youth pastor, and then a pastor, and then I've also done women's ministry, so a lot of stuff in the church. And no matter what we were doing, my favorite part was always the one-on-one conversations, whether it was with the youth or in women's ministry, when I had the opportunity to sit down and talk one-on-one with someone.
Okay, great.
I just realized, like, this is what I like.
All right.
This is the stuff. It's not so much the planning, the events and all that, but it's the one-on-one conversation.
Nice.
So when I had the opportunity to go back to school, I kind of, I finished 1 year of college before I got married, and then just kind of picked at college here and there. And then I decided I wanted to finish my my bachelor's, and I did that at age somewhere about 40 or something. I finished my bachelor's, and then my husband said, "Well, now what do you want to do? You finally finished that. What do you want to do?" And given all these things that I enjoyed in the past about the different ministries we've been a part of, I said, I think I want to be a counselor, a therapist. And so then I went back to school again, got my master's, and did all the process of that. But really, I think it just kind of really started from just like, that's what I always liked, the one-on-one conversations, and getting to see people work through problems. And I really wanted the ability to help beyond just listening. I wanted to be able to do something, treat trauma and things like that. Just kind of help people actually move forward, not just listen.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. Yeah. And I just remember how excited we were for you, and how excited Derek was for you when it was finally, I remember he was just, Christy's, finished her thing, and yeah, that was awesome. So yeah, that's awesome.
It's a long process. Yeah. It was quite the celebration when I finally finished.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how long have you been doing that now?
So I've been in practice for, let's see, what are we, a little over 3 years now, like been in private practice as licensed. But the process of becoming licensed requires several years of supervision, internship. So I did, so in total it becomes about 6 years.
Cool. All right, cool. What are some misconceptions that you've come across or that you've experienced regarding this? I think
the only one that I could really think of is that maybe counseling is just kind of a place to vent. But that's all you do, because there's so much more to it. It can be a good place to just come and just dump, and that definitely needs to happen from time to time. But there's so much more to counseling than just venting about how difficult something is.
Right. There's also work to be done.
Yeah. Which is hard, and I understand why people want to vent, because it's hard. That work is hard. Yeah.
Interesting. What are some of the biggest challenges that you've faced in your time doing this?
So as I was thinking about this, I'm realizing like the biggest challenges are not so much the people. I mean, I suppose I could I won't, but I could pull out a couple of cases that were like, this was really hard, or but a lot of the things that are challenging are kind of the regulations and things that I have to keep up with. Like, for instance, even just like writing clinical notes is kind of a pain to me. Like, I feel like I could meet with clients all day long and feel great at the end of the day if I didn't have to do the notes.
Oh, really?
The notes it's always the notes that kind of get to me. Like, okay, I have to write this clinical note. So I have to not just listen to you. I have to be thinking about how am I going to write this clinical note. And I always feel like that kind of gets in the way of me really enjoying or really, feeling like I'm in it with clients. But so it's just kind of that stuff. Just there's always new laws and regulations. And I have a little therapist group that we get together and just remind each other and try to keep each other up to date on all that stuff, because it's always changing. There's always something new to be aware of. So that's probably the biggest challenge. It's not super exciting to talk about, but that for me, I think is the biggest challenge. Yeah.
So the clinical notes, does that help with maybe in the future going back and being able to have reference, or maybe if someone else needed to see them in the future, being able to have some sort of continuing point of care or something like that?
Yeah, it's a legal requirement. It helps. I mean, honestly, I'm always glad I did it, because for the next session, I can look back and go like, oh yeah, we talked about this and here's where we're going. I have my treatment plans in there. Kind of the, what are we heading for? What's our goal here? And then, if there were to be, someone who requested them later on, I would send them on, to the next therapist. But the client has to sign for that. And there's so much confidentiality that really, nobody sees those notes but me, unless there's a court order or a client wants it.
Yeah. And do you have, I'm sure that you do, you have I know teachers do have continuing education or ongoing education.
Yeah. In fact, next weekend I'm going to go to a training on trauma.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah. That's awesome. What about doing this whole thing fills your bucket? Like, why do you do it?
Yeah, I do it because, like I mentioned earlier, I want to see change in people. Like, I love to see movement. I love working with couples because it's so dynamic. You've got two people in the room. And, and nobody can get away with anything, right? So I can sit with the client individually and they can say like, oh, I said this and this is how they responded. But you have two people in the room and you get, no, you didn't say it like that. Right. So everyone has to be honest in those situations. But I do love working with couples because, for me, I think marriage is so important. Relationships are so important. And so, and I know what it's like. I know what it's like to live in a difficult relationship, and I know what it's like now to live in a really great relationship. And I love to be able to help people get to that place of living in a great relationship, enjoying their marriage, their relationship, enjoying their life together, and looking for walking alongside couples and helping them. And I love working with couples. I also really love working with people who've had trauma in their background, because people are always surprised that there's some things that we can do to move past it and to process it and to not have to be triggered, to not have to experience PTSD, flashbacks, nightmares, things like that.
Wow.
It's difficult to go through, but effective. And so it's really fun to have a client come in and say like, okay, I'm having flashbacks, nightmares, anxiety, I'm alert, like this, I get lost in this memory from time to time. And then we do this EMDR process or IMTT process. And the next day I'll check in. They're like, yeah, I thought about it and I'm fine. Like, it's not bothering me anymore. And those are great. Those are so fun to be able to see a difference like that.
Can you tell me what those acronyms mean? EMDR, IM, whatever that was?
Yeah. So EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
Okay.
And it's a thing that helps you kind of, so like trauma, I'll geek out here on you a
Yeah,
little bit.
look, that's what this show is about. I want to learn stuff I didn't know. So let's hit it.
So like when normal information comes into our brain can process it nicely. It kind of, files it away in good places. It puts it in like long-term memory, like gets a timestamp on it, gets sent to long-term memory saying, oh, that happened in the past. And so we might remember something that really sucked in the past, and we might look at it and go like, well, that really sucked back then. I hated that. And then it can stay in the past. But traumatic memories that come in, the brain like doesn't know what to do with it. And so it doesn't get that timestamp of like it happened in the past. It's kind of like it bounces around. It never really gets filed in a good way.
Really?
And so, yeah. And so then when something reminds them of that thing, the brain's always making connections. This is just like this. This is just like this. So whether it's just that something reminds them, or the brain just goes like, we're going to think about this now. It comes up, and because it didn't get that timestamp that it happened in the past, it feels like it's happening again right now.
Wow, I did not know that.
So they just experience, this is PTSD, you experience the same, as if it's happening again right now. And so physiologically, your whole body reacts like that.
Wow.
So the EMDR uses some eye movements and other things to help the client kind of process that information and help them put it in the past. Help their brains go, okay, that happened in the past. Also helps to, we tend to develop negative beliefs about ourselves, about the world around us. Like, I'm worthless, I'm bad, the world is dangerous, something bad will happen. Things like that kind of get in our brain because of the way things that happen when we've grown up or more recently. And the EMDR process also helps to process those things and help you believe more adaptive beliefs, the truth. I'm safe, I'm worthwhile, I'm good, those kinds of things.
Wow.
So those are fun for me. On my side, it's fun. I always tell my clients, this is fun for me, not so much for you always. This can be a hard process. At the end, it's great.
And what was the other one? The IMTR or whatever?
The IMTT,
IMTT?
It's called image transformation therapy. And it works a little bit differently, but same kind of concept. It uses visualization and breathing, relaxation, basically to help you to when you're traumatized, your body tends to hold on to that too. So it helps you kind of diffuse the body part of that too. And it's an interesting process too. These things are always so interesting to me. Like sometimes I tell clients, this is a little bit weird, but it works. So we use it.
Yeah, this is crazy. This is new stuff that I never thought about. Because, okay, you just have to forgive me for a minute because I'm a musician, right? So I think of everything in like music terms. As a musician, right, I have these tools in my toolkit. Right? Like I have licks that I've learned. I've got chords that I've learned. I've got my guitar gear and everything. It all accumulates to me being able to solve the problem of playing the song. Right? And that's basically what you've got is you've got all these tools in the toolkit when you are presented with whatever challenge is in front of you. You say, hey, you have this problem of trauma. Hey, I've got these different tools in the toolkit. We're not just talking. Hey, I actually have tools that you can apply that will, that can, alleviate, that can bypass, that can, address these issues and, potentially get you out of these hard places that can, tackle the problem that's facing you. That's really interesting. That's awesome. Do you have something that you might consider the Christy Maxson like signature move, or maybe like a veteran move?
I don't know if I could be considered a veteran quite yet, having only really practiced for 6 years. But I I just have to pull out my my tools like you just described. The EMDR, the IMTT with couples. I do I'm trained in emotionally focused therapy, which is helping couples to find the patterns that they get into that keep them from connecting well. So that, I guess my signature moves would just be kind of those things. They're not really my signature moves because I learned them from somebody else.
Yeah.
But as when you're in school, you learn like this thin layer of all these different methods. And then after you're licensed, you kind of pick and choose which ones am I like really connect with and which ones will I delve into. And so like, there's lots of therapists in Sonora and lots of different methods being used. So I would say like for me, if someone's like, what methods do you use? Yeah, I'd say like it's the EMDR, IMTT, emotionally focused therapy. Those are and other little things here and there. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have something that you might consider like is maybe a guilty pleasure that you do that maybe someone might like give you the side eye, but you don't care, you do it anyway?
I don't know about this side eye.
You'd be like,
I'm not sure.
Christy, what is going on here? And you're just like, I don't care, I love it.
I don't know. So I think, I don't know if this constitutes, if this is really a guilty pleasure or not, but like I recently found on the phone like Sugar Crush, that game.
Okay.
And I feel like I'm like completely addicted to it now, which is not good for a therapist. But I've not like it's been it surprised me. I like downloaded it one time just for fun, and then I'm like, okay, I got to beat this. That's not this level. I'm not sure anyone would look at me side-eyed about that. But
those games, they're designed to be addictive. I mean,
yeah, definitely.
Do you have something that you might consider, something that, if it's possible, I don't know if you'll be able to even talk about it, but do you have something that you might be able to look back as your favorite moment or maybe your best moment during your time doing this?
Favorite moment or best moment? The favorite, well, my favorite moments are when I'm working with couples and they're at a place where they just are way more connected. I get to see that. And I ask someone to turn to, this is part of the process of couples therapy, I ask one of them to turn to the other and say something, really honest. And they do that, and sometimes when that happens, I can see that connection in their eyes, and I can see that like something's changed, something in the way they've said it, something in the words they've used. It's like communicating to the other person, and I get to see that connection between the two of them. I get to see like that information's been taken in. Sometimes there's tears in their eyes, and you can just like. There's just like a holy moment that happens when these kinds of conversations happen. And I kind of want to just like back out and be like, okay, I'm just going to let you do that. That's amazing. And I'm supposed to like stay in it and help, continue in it. But it's just, there are those like, again, it just feels like a holy moment when I watch a couple connect in a new way. Like that is just the most amazing thing. And that's, probably why I love doing couples therapy, because every now and then I get to do that. And my heart's just like, yes.
That's
and then
awesome.
I have to like, next client comes in and I have to like get myself ready for the next one. But I would say like those are, like there's, I have a few in my mind, but I won't tell you exactly.
Right, sure.
Which ones, but
yeah,
those are those
moments like
times
that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, moments like that are just amazing. That's why, and that's when I tell myself, that's why I'm doing this. This is lovely.
That's wonderful. Do you have? See, I have a question. That's the question is advice for beginners, but I don't really know how to frame this question. It's like someone wants to get into therapy. I mean, I guess that's a question, or someone feels like they need therapy. Let's frame it like that. Like if someone is sitting there and say like obviously you can say if someone wants to, you can speak into if someone wants to, feels like they want to get into therapy, because obviously you have experience with that. But if someone's, feels like they maybe need some, you can maybe speak into both of those.
Sure. Yeah. So I'll start with like, if you feel like you need therapy, like first of all, just know like that first phone call is hard.
Definitely.
Calling a therapist and in this community, it can be sometimes hard to find a therapist and find the right one. There's a little bit of a shortage, I think. So that first phone call can be really hard. It's nervous, you're reaching out, you've never done this before. So it can be really hard. But do it. It gets easier once you make that phone call and keep at it. Be persistent. If that first one you call doesn't work, try another, and
yeah, and you even mentioned in our text changes that, like, especially here in Sonora, we have a small community. So, like you in Sonora, you might know all the therapists, like maybe go out of town, it's fine,
right, yeah, and that's the thing. Like, there's this dual relationship thing where where therapists can't, treat their friends, and they can. You just have to kind of you have to talk about it, and you have to figure out how does this, how does that all work out?
Right.
Anyway, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah. And then what about if someone was listening to be like, hey, I I might want to get into therapy. Maybe just give them a quick roadmap on what that might look like.
Yeah, it's a long roadmap.
Yeah.
So first, you first of all decide, make sure that's what you want to do, because if you want to do it, great, and that's awesome, and we need therapists, so please do if you're interested. And it is a long roadmap, so you have to you need to go to a school where the Board of Behavioral Sciences will accredit your a school that's accredited by the Board of Behavioral Sciences. You have to look that up in California. And then, or wherever you are, whatever state you're at.
Okay.
So that's 2 years, get your master's degree. And then there's, what is it now? 3,000 hours of under supervision.
Wow. That's a lot of hours.
So that is, it's a lot of hours. And then there's 2 tests you take. You take a law and ethics exam, you take a clinical exam. When you pass both of those, you can become licensed.
Wow. 3,000 hours. What if you're doing? I mean, how many? What you do? A session's an hour, right?
Yeah.
And then, so, I mean, how long does that take? Does that take a year, 2 years, of 3?
Well, that took me about 3 years.
3 years. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And because you have to be a little bit creative in this area.
Right.
So I was so thankful. Sierra Bible Church allowed me to work there, and then contract with they contracted with my supervisor. But there was a time I was working at 3 different locations just to try to get my hours in.
Wow.
So I was at Sierra Bible Church, I was at the Cancer Center at the hospital, and then at Center for Nonviolent Community. And so it's a little bit hard to get those hours here. So yeah, it took a long time.
Yeah. So I have a segment on my show that's called Let's Get Into It. And, like when we had John C. Brown on, he did a little acting exercise. And we had when we had Kyla Myers on, she had me do a stage directing exercise where we pointed at stage right, stage left, and I was just wondering if you had anything that we could do in just a couple minutes over the internet that is related to maybe therapy and exercise, or something that we could do that maybe people could maybe participate in also. Yeah,
totally. I'll talk you through one of the relaxation relaxation exercises we do, because one of the things that's real important is when people show up into the room, they've just come from a lot of crazy things going on, or there's just it's kind of a quiet the mind a little bit, and also this is a really simple exercise you can do at any time if you're feeling stressed, anxious. So we're going to talk about breathing.
Okay.
So when we breathe, we want a good belly breath.
Okay.
So if I had my hand on, you can't really see my belly, but if I had my hand on my chest, my hand on my belly, and I take a deep breath, the hand on my belly is not, or my hand on my chest, it doesn't move much at all, but my hand on my belly kind of comes out as I breathe. So there's deep breaths like that. So we're going to take 3 deep breaths.
Okay.
And I'll give you instructions as we do it. So take first deep breath. And as you breathe out, release the tension from behind your eyes, your forehead, and your jaw.
Okay.
Take another deep breath. Release the tension from your shoulders. Maybe put your shoulders back from your neck. Let it go down your spine like dominoes down your spine.
Okay.
And one more deep breath. Feel the tension in your belly. Release that tension down your legs and down out the bottoms of your feet.
Okay.
And that's it. Real simple.
Yeah, that was very
it
relaxing.
Can be done anytime, and nobody needs to know you're doing any kind of relaxation thing. You can just 3 deep breaths.
Wow.
My friend, I have to give credit. My friend Sarah Colley, who's a marriage and family therapist, also taught me that one. So
Okay.
I like that one.
That's awesome. Yeah, that was very relaxing. I encourage you guys to try that while you're listening to this. Yeah, give it a shot. That was very, I literally could feel it melting all the way down to my feet.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's
Just
very
a
interesting.
little bit of
yeah.
intentionality. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Before we're kind of ahead of schedule because we're kind of powering through these questions. But I just wanted to bring up what Jason was talking about with the kind of rampant anxiety and depression and that's in our kind of culture nowadays, especially with the youth. And I was just wondering if you could maybe speak into that a little bit. And obviously you can't speak specifics, but maybe if you can see, you're on the front lines of that stuff, and if you can, say, if you can share a little bit of kind of what you're running up against, and maybe if give us some advice on what to do if if we're if we're experiencing some anxiety or depression, or if we are interacting with someone that is, and how we can maybe help. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So from my perspective, and this is not research, this is just, kind of what I'm looking at around, and as I talk with other therapists, it really seems like the pandemic really brought out a lot of anxiety. All of a sudden the world's dangerous.
Right.
There's a virus out there that's trying to kill us. And then even like everybody around us, like there is potentially an enemy all of a sudden. Right. Everybody's got a different idea about how we should respond to this pandemic. Everybody, so you go out there, someone's wearing a mask, you might get mad. Someone might be mad at you because you're wearing a mask. They might be mad at you because you're not wearing a mask. Right. They might be mad at you because you're, anywhere social, or because you're not doing anything social. Right. You're getting vaccinated, you're not getting vaccinated. All of these things, like suddenly the world is just dangerous. Mm-hmm. And it's always been, somewhat dangerous, but it's like in your face dangerous now. And so we have, especially I guess, with youth who like, this is, those of us who are older, like, and especially, our age or my age, your age, or older than I am, they've been through stuff, right? They've been through other things, and they've seen that like you can get through it. But kids, they've not been through this stuff. Right. And so suddenly the world is dangerous. They don't have the tools to get through it. And we're isolated, whether it's because of difference of opinions, or because we're like physically isolated. We had to seclude for a while. We had to, we couldn't do the fun things we always did. We couldn't, all the different things that happened. And so now we have like, the world is dangerous, and now I have nobody to hang out with, no one to like spend time with, nobody to talk to. And the person I talk to might be mad at me for something, or the way I'm talking to, there's all these things. So we have, world is dangerous, and we have isolation, and that, that's kind of my, my best guess as to why like this, why kids are really especially struggling right now. But, and I work with adults. I don't work with teenagers. I refer those to some really capable therapists, but I see it in adults as well. I saw that especially, like that anxiety level just skyrocketed, depression, all of that stuff. So it's legitimate.
Yeah.
It's rough.
Yeah. So, and what would you say if we're experiencing maybe some of that, or if we have a loved one or family member that we notice is experiencing some of that? Do you have any advice for that? Maybe something practical we can do, or?
Yeah. So I think, don't isolate.
Okay.
as best as you can, reach out to people, let people know you're hurting, reach out, tell people that you're anxious, find those safe people.
Safe
if
people.
the person you talk to
that.
doesn't seem like they're that, safe person, then find somebody else. Reach out, go to a church, join a group, find connection, find people, go to therapy if you need to.
Yeah.
Learn truth. Because, the world is relatively dangerous, right? It's kind of like driving a car, there bad things could happen, but generally we're safe, right? In driving a car, generally, we take our safety precautions and all those things, put on a seatbelt, we're careful, we're alert, and we're aware, but generally, driving a car is safe. And the world is generally safe. We take our precautions, we do the things we need to do. So, learning truth about ourselves and about the world around us, and whether that's through connecting with others or going to therapy, which is also a way of connecting. Honestly, I'm a believer, and so in Jesus Christ, and so the real peace that comes can, I think, only be through Jesus Christ. Right. And he says, in this world we're going to have trouble, and he's here to overcame the world. Yeah. And so I think that is like ultimately, Jesus is the one that we can turn to. He's the one that never lets us down. He never is mad at us. Right. He's never isolated from us. He's the one that, helps us ultimately.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to get to the name of the show, N+1 Podcast. What for you and for your career is next? What is on the horizon? What is N+1 for Christy?
Boy, I think about that. What's next? I'm considering becoming a supervisor. I guess that's a new thing.
Oh, really?
Kind of thinking about. Yeah, we'll see. I'm not really sure yet. That's it's just someone just approached me and asked me about that, so I'm kind of considering that.
What would that mean?
Do that. It would mean having somebody who's a associate intern like I was, who's going through those hours and meeting with them weekly.
Cool.
And helping them through. I'm not sure I'm going to do that. It takes a lot of work to get there, and so I have to think about that. But definitely like more training. Like I love giving training. It just really helps to, understand my clients better and learning new techniques and different methods to help people. Really excited about this training going to next week that talks about trauma. It's by Bessel van der Kolk, who wrote the book Body Keeps Score, which is a great book, by the way. You should read it. And he's kind of he's the expert on trauma. So I'm super excited. He's going to be in San Jose. So I'm very excited to I'm amazed that he's going to be there. So excited to hear him.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. How can people connect with you? Do you have social media, or if people wanted to get therapy, how do people connect with you? Yeah.
So you could go to ChristyMaxson.com.
Oh, awesome.
ChristyMaxson.com. That's my my professional website. I do have a Facebook page too. Or also if you go to psychologytoday.com and look for therapists, or put my name in, you'll find me there too.
Go. Great. And we'll put a link to that in the show notes. Awesome. But before we get out of here, we'll ask you the 2 silly questions. This is my favorite part of the show. Like, I don't know. I might just drop all the questions and just do these for the podcast. The 2 silly questions. The first thing is the name drop card section of the show, which is I want you to say a sentence or 2 and casually drop the name of the most famous person you've ever met.
Casually drop. I didn't catch this part of the question, the casually drop. So I will say that, so I grew up in Oregon, and I went to church with Roddy Piper, who was a professional wrestler.
Roddy Piper.
You know who that is?
Yeah, of course. He's a professional wrestler.
Yeah. And so my pastor. So he asked, I don't even remember what the point of the sermon was, but he asked Roddy Piper to interrupt his sermon one time, and be all come up aggressive and mean and walk up the aisle and act like he's going to hurt him. And then he had this older woman come up and go to Roddy, you be quiet. And anyway, so it was crazy.
That's
yeah,
phenomenal.
So Rowdy Roddy Piper.
That is amazing. Rowdy Roddy Piper. I didn't know he was a believer. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He went to my church. That's all I can say.
Okay. And then, in your opinion, what is the greatest all-time cartoon theme song?
Oh, I go back and forth between like when I was a kid and then my girls. So I think I had to settle on the Charlie Brown, like Linus and Lucy. You know, the da 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 da
Sure.
da da. I think that was my favorite.
Yeah, that's
Wonder
awesome.
Pets was a close second, I think.
What was it? Wonder Pets?
Wonder Pets.
I don't know that one.
Oh, so
I'll have to
fun.
look that one up. That's awesome.
All these little Wonder Pets, we're on our way. My kids watched that one.
Yeah.
Someone's got like a place in my heart
Yeah.
because I just remember hearing that over and over.
Awesome. Well, hey, Christy, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really, really appreciate it. And if you guys are listening to the show, if you've enjoyed it, you can show your thanks by making sure you click follow if you're listening on audio, or clicking like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. If you enjoyed this, you can share it with a friend if you think that they might enjoy it also. Otherwise, until next time, everybody. Christy, we saw this in the text message. You can say it with me. 1, 2, 3. Don't be a jerk.
Don't be a jerk.
Don't be a jerk. All right, guys, don't be a jerk. Bye.